Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the webinar this afternoon called Why Pensions Matter. What's good for the participant is good for the employer. My name is Jeff Kemker, and I am the Manager Member Services for Loggers. We are recording this webinar this afternoon, so it will be posted as a video on Loggers' YouTube channel shortly, probably tomorrow or the next day. So if you would like to view it again or know anyone else who missed the webinar and would like to view it, it will be available in that format on our YouTube channel later. If you have any questions or comments, I would really encourage those throughout this session. You have a GoToWebinar interface on the right-hand side of your screen, unless you've moved it somewhere else. And within that interface, there are some tabs, and one of those tabs is for questions, and one of those tabs is for chat. So I would encourage you to use those features. Simply click on the plus sign next to questions or next to chat and type in the text box. Click send. I will see those, and as questions come in, I will just answer those as we go along. So I would highly encourage participation and your comments and questions throughout. So with that being said, let's get started with the webinar. So I want to kind of start off with some statistics on the state of retirement security and retirement preparedness within the United States. More and more people are saying that retirement is their biggest financial concern. 75% of voters are worried that they will not have enough money to retire. The average retirement savings deficit is $48,000 per person. Half of all American households, ages 55 to 64, those getting ready to retire, have less than $98,000 saved for retirement. Only 50%, half of private sector workers even have access to an employer-sponsored retirement plan. So what that means is half of the folks that work in the private sector are completely on their own for saving for retirement and figuring out all the ins and outs of how to invest, how much to invest, when to reallocate their portfolios, so on and so forth. You can see just by these statistics the need for well-structured employer-sponsored retirement plans in this country is very, very high. And as we go through this webinar, I will demonstrate more and more reasons why. But the state of retirement preparedness and retirement security within this country is a little depressing as you look at these statistics. The savings rates are low, and those who are required to plan completely on their own often are not qualified to make those types of investment decisions on themselves. So let's talk a little bit about a workforce, and let's consider, why should an employer even provide a retirement plan in the first place? Wouldn't it be easier to simply provide cash compensation to the employees and then let the employees figure out what they want to buy and what they need for themselves? Well, of course, that would be much easier. So why would an employer provide a retirement plan? Well, let's consider this scenario. We all are going to get older. It's inevitable. We all age. And we all will reach a point, and that point is going to be at different times for all of us, but we all are going to reach a point where our compensation is not equal to our productivity because of our age. So when this happens, when we become less productive because of the factors of aging, but our compensation is still high, what is our employer to do with us? Let's look at the options. One option would be not provide a retirement plan. So this would be an employer that does not have a retirement plan for their employees. So their employees are completely on their own. When an employee reaches the point where their productivity does not match up with their compensation because of factors related to age, and they can't afford to retire on their own because their employer has not provided a retirement plan. What's the employer to do? Well, the most obvious solution is to fire the employee. So you fire the employee with no further compensation due as the productivity diminishes. Obviously, that is not a desirable action for an employer or the employee. So what's another option? Well, another option would be to demote the employee. So you could simply move the employee into a lesser compensated position to try to reduce that cost a little bit. But the problem with that is you're not taking care of the problem of the productivity of the employee. Okay, the productivity of the employee is still going to remain low, so you're not taking care of that part of it. You are just simply deferring it. Another option would be to just simply retain the employee at the same salary and position. This is what happens at most employers that don't have a retirement plan. The employees simply just continue to work. The employer leaves them in their same position, and the productivity continues to decline, and the compensation and productivity do not match up. An unintended consequence of this a lot of times can be this is a huge morale hit for the younger employees within the workforce because they are seeing that people aren't retiring. So there's no upward mobility, there's no upward movement for those younger talented workers. And what starts to happen is you start to lose those younger talented workers as they move on to places where there is more movement through that workforce. So those are the options from an employer standpoint of what to do with an employee if you don't have a retirement plan when their age, or I'm sorry, when their compensation and their productivity do not match up. Let's see what happens when you do provide a retirement plan. Same scenario. You have folks that are reaching retirement ages and you have a well-structured employer-sponsored retirement plan that provides an adequate benefit so folks can retire when they want to and when they should. One of the things this does is it keeps the lines of promotion open. Like I said, this offers incentive and opportunity for the younger workers when they can see that those ahead of them in seniority and position are retiring on time. That's going to provide incentive for those younger workers to stay, and because they know that they may eventually have that opportunity to move up into those positions. It reduces the costs that are incurred from retaining the employee. And some of the costs are ones that we just talked about. Retaining the employee at the same salary and position can be very costly for the employer. So, providing a retirement plan in the long term is going to reduce those costs from employee retention. It's going to increase the productivity and morale. Obviously because of the upward movement, folks are able to retire on time when they want to, and they are retiring with a dignified exit from the workforce. Okay, being fired is not a dignified exit from the workforce. Being demoted is not a dignified exit from the workforce. But having a retirement plan where you can retire on time when you want to, keeping the lines of promotion open, reducing costs incurred from retention, and increasing morale and productivity, all of those things are more desirable than not providing a well-structured employer-sponsored retirement plan. And there are, as I said, there are real costs to an employer when employees can't afford to retire. So when employees stay working because they can't afford to go anywhere, there are real costs to an employer, and there have been more and more studies done on this recently because of the lack of retirement security among a lot of the workforces in this country. So here are just some of the costs. So the average health care claims for workers that are 65 and older are over $10,000 a year. Sick leave, when you become for those ages 65 and older, average 15 days per year. The workers' comp claims increase as age goes up, obviously. So the average there for workers' compensation claims for the ages of 45 to 64 is almost $8,000 a year and a total of 66 days lost per year. There was also a recent study done that I found about healthcare costs that are directly related to financial stress. So obviously financial concerns are a big stressor for employees, and stress can cause a whole host of healthcare issues. And there are studies being done right now that are tying financial stress to healthcare costs. And obviously, if you don't have a retirement plan, you don't really know what you're going to do, if you're going to be able to afford to move on. You don't know what tomorrow brings as far as a dignified exit from the workforce. That can cause stress, which in turn can cause increased costs for the employer as the employees age. There are also intangible costs that are harder to measure, but they're still there. They still exist. And one of those we've already talked about. It's the turnover of younger, talented workers. So you have younger, talented folks that you want to retain, okay? But you are not able to retain them because there's no movement, okay? The people that are ahead of them in seniority and position simply stay on the job because they can't afford to go anywhere. Well, that is going to cause frustration among the younger groups, and you're going to lose the most talented workers first. Okay, those are the ones you really want to keep. Those are the ones that are going to move on when they see that there's no positions for them to grow into. And you know, when there's a lack of innovation, and innovation a lot of times comes about by just replenishment of the workforce. So as you have people retire or leave through retirement, you bring in different people into those positions, which in turn you bring different people into the positions below them. So you have this constant replenishment of the workforce, and that brings about innovation. You have people that come in that bring in new ideas, that aren't necessarily interested in doing things the way they've always been done. And so when you have a lack of innovation, that can really take a toll on productivity and morale for everyone, because you know, there's nothing new. We're continuing to do the same things we've always done, and that can take a hit on the productivity and morale as well. And so you also have this, we also see this factor where people simply retire on the job. Okay, so they can't afford to go anywhere. So they're still working. They're still coming in earning a paycheck every day, but the productivity is very low because the morale is so low. The stress is high, the financial stress is high, and the productivity loss there of people simply retiring at their desks. You know, they're no longer motivated to be productive. That's another factor that there's a lot of studies being done on now for the aging workforce that we're seeing. So obviously employers want to avoid all of this. And there are ways where we can design retirement plans that provide and facilitate graceful exits from the workforce. It is achievable. So, you know, here's some quotes I've found from experts out there on some of these studies that are being done. This is from the Chief Marketing Officer at Mass Mutual Retirement Services. She said, "What we are starting to hear is, I'll retire when I'm unemployable. That very clearly articulates a shift from the feeling that you have control over those decisions to saying, I'm going to keep going until I can't go any longer." And I wonder, you know, how many times you have heard this, maybe from some of your friends, from some of your colleagues who feel this way. I know I've heard it a lot, especially from workers that don't have a well-structured employer-sponsored retirement plan. These are the things you hear, is I'm going to have to work until I can physically no longer get out of bed, basically. And so we're seeing a great shift in this country from people looking forward to retirement, people that are excited about it and see it as a new chapter in their life, to people saying, I'm going to have to work until I physically can't go any longer. I have no control over this decision. It's going to be a physical and mental decision on when I can leave the workforce. So this is another quote, and this is from a senior VP at Gallagher Retirement Services. This is, I've touched on this already. He said, these people simply retire at their desks on the job. So they're on the job, coming into work, showing up to work every day, but they're not really there mentally. And there's a real productivity and morale loss because of that. So what's the purpose of having a well-structured employer-sponsored retirement plan, specifically a pension plan like loggers? Well, number one, it's to attract quality workers. Okay, I think, especially if you see the statistic about 50% of private sector employers offer no kind of retirement plan whatsoever. Having a pension plan, a defined benefit pension plan like loggers, that is going to provide income during your retirement years, lifetime monthly income during your retirement years. That's what people are seeking now. And that can be a huge recruitment tool for a lot of people. Even younger workers are really starting to care about these issues right now. So number one, a pension plan is there to attract quality workers. It also provides incentive to stay with your employer during the most productive years. So you have a window of when people are most productive. And I can't remember this off the top of my head, but there's been studies done on this. It's somewhere between the ages of 35 and 60, or somewhere in that range, where a lot of research has said, those are the most productive years for a worker. Okay. So having a pension plan is going to provide incentive for employees to stay during those most productive years. And then as productivity starts to decline because of factors related to age, they have a way that provides a graceful exit from the workforce. There we go. It provides a dignified exit from the workforce. So again, you can see this cycle starting to form. We want to attract quality workers. We want to incentivize these workers to stay when they're most productive. And when the productivity starts to decline, we want to provide those workers, we want to reward those workers for their loyalty and their service and provide them with a dignified exit from the workforce. All of this keeping the lines of promotion open for the younger workers to replenish those higher positions, and then other workers to come in and replenish those lower positions. All of this promotes innovation, productivity, and morale. This is a study, I read a study by Mercer, and they actually looked at two global corporations over a long period of time. And what they were specifically studying was their retirement plans and the effect of doing away with a defined benefit pension type plan and replacing it with like a 401k investment type situation. So they were specifically studying how switching from a defined contribution plan like a 401k, or how to switching to a 401k changed the retirement thinking of the employees. So they studied the employee development and career paths at these two global corporations. And both of these companies followed a culture of promoting from within. So that was kind of not necessarily a written policy, but what they preferred to do is to promote from within. So one company, we're going to call it Global Corporation A, decided to eliminate its pension plan in the late 90s and replaced it with a 401k type plan. So a 401k is more of an investment type plan where you contribute a certain amount of your salary to this plan. Your employer may also contribute to this plan, and you accumulate money based on how much you put in, how much your employer puts in, and the investment decisions that you make on your own, what the markets do, so on and so forth. It's solely based on how much you can accumulate money-wise during your career. It's an account balance type situation. So once you get to the age where you think you should retire, you have to look at your account balance and say, okay, whatever is in my account balance is what I have, and is this going to be enough to last me the rest of my life? So Global Corporation A decided to replace their pension, defined benefit pension plan, with a 401k in the 90s. Global Corporation B, we'll call it, maintained its pension plan. So initially, both companies didn't show any immediate changes in employee satisfaction from this change. Probably a big reason for this is we all remember in the 90s, the markets were doing very, very, very well. So I imagine at that time, a lot of the employees were in favor of an investment type approach because, people were earning 18, 19, 20% every year. So initially, there was no immediate effects on morale or anything like that. However, this all changed when the recession hit and the economy slowed down. So when this happened, the research, the study that was done on these two companies found that in the company that had the 401k, the younger workers became dissatisfied as older workers remained on the job and prevented their career advancement. So you start to see this growing dissatisfaction among the younger workers when the recession hits, the 401k balances take a huge hit, so people that were planning on retiring now have to continue working to build those balances back up. So this really affected the job mobility or velocity of people moving into new positions, whether it be vertically or horizontally. At the Global Corporation A, the job mobility stalled out at 11%. So it actually Global Corporation A really took a hit by doing away with their pension plan in terms of job mobility, and they did not see this increasing. So they had this kind of unwritten policy of promoting from within, and that's what they preferred to do, but there were nowhere to promote these people because people weren't retiring. So what happened was this accelerated the exit of the more talented younger people who saw advancement potential evaporating at this company. On the other hand, the firm with the pension, Global Corporation B, the job velocity remained high. It didn't take a hit. It remained at about 18%. And what this showed is people continue to retire at their expected timelines. So at the corporation that kept the pension plan, the recession didn't have an effect on when those people could retire. They were still retiring at the same times that they had always planned on, because they had a defined benefit plan that they knew if I work here for a certain amount of years, this is what I'm going to get. So again, Global Corporation A, promotions stalled. They had started to have high turnover of the younger talented workers, and the average retirement age increased to age 64. As opposed to Global Corporation B that kept its pension plan, they saw no change in their promotions or job mobility or velocity. They saw no change in turnover, and their retirement ages stayed the same, and their average retirement age at the company with a pension was age 60. So it was 4 years younger than the average age of the company with the 401k. So essentially what we're seeing here is the impact of the move from the defined benefit plan to the 401k means that employers have lost their primary influence over the timing of their employees' retirements. Okay, so as we kind of saw in that quote we looked at earlier, whereas people now don't think they have any control really over when they can retire, and employers have lost that control as well by not providing a dignified exit from the workforce. They have chosen to not have that control over when their employees will retire and when new positions will open up. So I said this before also, there's hidden costs in terms of employee turnover, talent stagnation, people who retire on the job and simply stop working hard to get promoted. So even those older workers, their productivity is declining. because they can't afford to retire. The younger workers, you're going to see a productivity decline too, because there's no reason for them to work harder to get a promotion when there are no promotions available. So, we've been talking about, the benefits of a defined benefit pension plan in terms of the workforce. And it's not just a benefit to the worker. It's a benefit to the employer. It's also a benefit to the local economies. And as you can see by this map, this is loggers' benefit payments in 2014, okay, last year. And loggers paid out $230 million in annual benefits last year. 94% of that money stayed in the local communities. So what we found, and how it works out in most communities throughout the nation, is when folks retire, they tend to stay where they're at. They tend to stay in their hometown. And so the money that's being paid towards these retirement benefits throughout these employees' career, when they retire and start receiving these benefits, those funds that they're receiving gets recycled within their hometown. Okay, it gets paid back, if you will, because retirement benefits that employees or that retirees receive, they're not sticking them under a mattress and forgetting about them. They are using those funds to purchase goods and services in their own hometowns. So it's a real benefit to the local communities as well. So you provide an incentive for employees to work hard and serve their communities throughout their career. Once they retire, those funds are being redistributed within their own hometowns. And as you can see by the numbers on this chart, on this map, those numbers are quite substantial. And we have interactive maps that you can look at on our website as well that will actually show you by county the benefit payments that loggers pays to retirees by every county in Missouri. So I would encourage you to go to mologgers.org and check that out, and you can look at your own county and see the economic impact that loggers retirees are having within your own community. So takeaways from this discussion. Obviously, retirement is a major concern among Americans today. There are less and less folks that have access to retirement plans through their employer. Individuals that are required to kind of go it alone often do not have the knowledge to balance and manage a portfolio on their own, and so that's a concern as well. The costs to an employer when employees cannot afford to retire are significant. We've looked at all those costs of retaining employees past their optimum productivity ages. Well-structured employer-sponsored retirement plans create many positive outcomes for employers, and defined benefit pension plans also benefit to the local communities. So some takeaways here. I know this was a short webinar. I don't see any questions or comments or anything like that. If any of you have any questions or comments, please let me know at this point, and I'll try to answer those as they come in. Again, we have recorded this webinar, so it will be posted on Loggers' YouTube channel, so anyone that wants to, if you want to share this with anyone else, it will be there. If you have any questions, comments after this, you'll be getting a follow-up email from me. You can simply type in those questions back to me or comments, and that would be very helpful for me as well. If you would ever like someone from Loggers to come to your specific site and do any type of presentation related to Loggers or retirement benefits in general, please let us know. We would be happy to do that. So I do have one question from Kim, and that question is age 60 common for retirement? And I think that's an excellent question, because age 60 is the normal retirement age for administrative folks within Loggers. And some people say that that's not realistic, that people just can't afford to retire anymore at age 60. And I think we saw in the example with the two companies, you know, one of those companies, their average age for retirement remained at age 60. You think, man, I don't know if that's realistic anymore because I can't start getting Social Security until, you know, normal Social Security until I'm, say, 66 or 67. So, you know, what does the research say? Well, the average retirement age in America is 61. So I think it's very common. It's very realistic. Now, do we expect that number to maybe increase over the years? Possibly. It wouldn't surprise me if the average retirement age in America started to tick up, because one reason people are living longer, they're healthier, you know, so they might decide to work longer. But at the same time, you know, as we saw, only half of employees have access to employer-sponsored retirement plans. Savings rates are very low, so that age may tick up over time. But currently, yeah, I would, you know, age 60 is realistic. It is common. The average age of retirement in America is age 61, no matter if you're public or private. So that's a good question, Kim. I thank you for asking that. If there's any other questions, please let me know. Again, you can follow up with me via email. Please go to our website for more information. We have lots of information about this sort of stuff on our website. At this time, I will end the webinar. I want to thank you all very much for taking time out of your day to attend. Please visit Logger's website to see the other webinars that we have available. We do approximately 2 to 3 live webinars per month. And we have a lot of recorded webinars on our YouTube channel, so please check those out as well. Thank you all very much, and I will talk to you soon.